Good afternoon, everyone. We are delighted to have you all with us as we explore the findings and recommendations from the recent policy analysis on climate change adaptation and disaster risk reduction in Jordan, developed by Mercy Corps in partnership with London School of Economics under the Zurich Climate Resilience Alliance. My name is Yasmin Khair, and I will be your host for today's session. And over the next hour, we'll be sharing key insights from the policy review and research assessment, looking at the opportunities to strengthen Jordan's resilience to climate and disaster risks. And there will be a 30-minute slot after the presentation for an open Q&A session. Our speakers for today will be Anna Beswick from the London School of Economics, who will introduce the Zurich Climate Resilience Alliance and London School of Economics perspective on the work carried out in Jordan. Hala Murad, a climate policy expert and the lead of the assessment, who will walk us through the main findings and recommendations. Finally, Noor Derwaze from Mercy Corps Jordan, who will go over Mercy Corps Jordan's response to the policy analysis findings and share information about our current project in Jordan as a call for action. Before we dive in, I just have a few quick notes. This session is being recorded and it will be shared with you after the session. And second of all, there will be subtitles throughout the webinar. رح يكون في ترجمة للغة العربية للي بحب تقدروا تشوفوا الترجمة التالية. في 3 نقط على اليمين فوق بتلاقوهم عندكم. إذا بتكبسوا عليهم بيطلع لكم قائمة. في خيار من الخيارات اسمه language and speech. بس تكبسوا عليه بيطلع لكم خيار اللايف كابشن، برضو اكبسوا عليه. هيك مفروض تطلع لكم ترجمة. ممكن يكتب لكم إنه رح يترجم للإنجليزي، بس يصير هذا الإشي فيكم تكبسوا على خيار برضو في 3 نقط عند البوكس الأبيض، في open caption settings، وبعدين في خيار language settings. من language settings في خيار من الخيارات مكتوب عليه translate to، تكبسوا عليه وبيطلع لكم خيار اللغة العربية. Also, please feel free to introduce yourselves in the chat and tell us. Now, I will hand it over to Anna to introduce the Zurich Climate Resilience Alliance and London School of Economics.
Thank you, Yasmin, and it's really great to see so many of you on the webinar today. As Yasmin kindly introduced me, my name is Anna Beswick. I work as a Climate Adaptation Policy Fellow at the London School of Economics, and it's been a real pleasure to work with my colleagues in Mercy Corps Jordan in recent months to develop this exciting and important policy analysis work. So my job for the next 10 minutes or so is to introduce you to the Zurich Climate Resilience Alliance, which is an alliance that works globally and enables Mercy Corps and LSE to collaborate on projects like this one. So next slide, please, Yasmin. The Zurich Climate Resilience Alliance has a bold vision. Our vision is of a world where communities are resilient to climate hazards and able to thrive. And together as an alliance, our goal is that by 2035, alongside like-minded partners and organisations, we will positively impact 70 million people who are vulnerable to climate change. And our interim target is to impact 5.5 million people by 2027. The Alliance has 4 objectives: to enhance and increase the resilience of both urban and rural communities to climate hazards, to promote the widespread adoption of good climate resilience practices, thirdly, to increase the funding available to communities to improve their climate resilience. And fourthly, and of particular relevance to our discussion today, the Alliance aims to improve the policy environment for building community resilience to climate hazards. Next slide. This slide here shows who is part of the Alliance. Our partners are drawn from humanitarian, NGO, research and private sectors. And together we are working to achieve our vision by implementing solutions, promoting good practice, influencing policy, and facilitating system change. Next slide. The Alliance works across 15 countries globally through 19 country programs. And this map just shows you visually where we're active and which organisations work in different countries. The Alliance addresses multiple climate hazards: floods, heatwave, wildfires and storms. Next slide. So all of these different Alliance countries have unique contexts and challenges and are working to progress climate adaptation based on a deep knowledge and understanding of local context. But there are many common themes and common areas where countries across the Alliance want to work together to make progress. And climate adaptation governance is a key theme for the Alliance, where country programs and the Alliance partners are working together to make progress. I co-lead the adaptation governance theme for the Alliance, along with colleagues from Mercy Corps and Concern Worldwide. And together we are working towards effective government adaptation policy and practice. But what does adaptation governance mean? It refers to the actors, policies, processes, and institutions that guide how societies around the world adapt to the impacts of climate change. It includes and involves the decisions, strategies, and actions that are taken to increase resilience and undertaken by governments, communities, businesses, and wider stakeholders. It covers everything from global level adaptation governance right to national, provincial, and local level governance. Next slide. So this topic of adaptation governance and this theme is a crucial component of how we can increase resilience and adapt to climate change. But the system of adaptation governance is not working well. And we need to see system change and significant changes and improvements to adaptation governance globally. So what's wrong at the moment? We see typically around the world that the policy strands, policies, strategies and plans that are in place to try and increase resilience and adapt to climate change are often not well drafted, and if they're drafted, they're not often implemented. They often don't speak and work well across sectors, and what might be present at the national level doesn't really translate into action at the local level. There's often a disconnect between climate adaptation and disaster risk reduction policies. We see that climate finance is not optimal for climate adaptation. There is not enough finance available at different levels. Where there is finance available, it's not reaching those who are most vulnerable. And that globally, climate finance is not available in enough quantity and quality for those countries and places that need it the most. The roles and responsibilities. So who's responsible for delivering climate resilience? Who's accountable? That's often very unclear. Stakeholders are often not defined or engaged. And there's a lack of coordination and a lack of clarity. And really a limit to accountability mechanisms for people being held responsible for commitments made to increase resilience. And finally, we don't think decision-making processes are working. So who decides who is at risk from climate change? Who is most vulnerable? Who gets to prioritise what action should happen? What resources should be allocated? Often these decisions are not made in a participatory way and are not inclusive. So these are key aspects that we want to influence and support change on as an alliance in the years ahead. The next slide brings us to why this work in Jordan is so very important. The work that the Mercy Corps Jordan team and many of you on this call today have contributed to understand the current context for adaptation governance in Jordan, to understand your current policy environment, is a crucial first step to really seeing shifts and ongoing development in the years ahead. It's been really good to reflect and see the progress that Jordan has made in adapting to climate change in recent years. Some really important foundations have been put in place, which have been great to see. It's also been really good to see how open stakeholders and partners in Jordan have been able to really identify the improvements that are needed, have been able to say, you know, we think these recommendations are really important for how we can grow and develop our approach to climate resilience policy in the future. I have seen such a wide willingness to talk and be involved in this policy analysis. That's been very impressive. I've not seen many countries where people from across government, agencies, NGOs have been so open and willing to talk about what's happening at the moment and what could happen and improve in future. So I really congratulate all of you for the role that you've played in creating the recommendations included in this policy analysis, which has been very much led and developed by the Mercy Corps Jordan team. And it's fantastic to see that work happen. So I'll stop there and pass on to colleagues who are going to share the results of the policy analysis. Please do pop your questions in the chat as we go through. As Yasmin said, introduce yourself in the chat as well. I know some of you have joined during my talk. Please let us know who you are, where you are coming and joining us from. And over, I think, to Hala to share the results of the findings from the work in Jordan. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Bisquick. Really, a pleasure to be with you here and with Yasmin and with Noor and with all of you in our audience to talk about these results. My name is Hala Murad and I am a climate policy expert. And I'm really honored to be a spearheaded of the policy research, of this policy research. Being on the world most water-scarce countries, Jordan is facing amplified consequences from the climate change that has increased vulnerability to heat waves and flash flooding, while also raising the risk of drought. The country's capacity to meet the development goals is threatened by these effects, which will also have a big influence on Jordan water supplies, agriculture, and general economic stability. Climate change adaptation, CCA, and disaster risk reduction work together to addressing underlying vulnerabilities and increase resilience to these threats. Recognizing the need of stronger, evidence-based and inclusive policies and strategies, and in-depth policy analysis of Jordan's in CCA and the DRR frameworks. The policy analysis expresses through analysis Jordanian legislations related discussions with government, experts, and community stakeholders. It also featured a nationwide survey over 1,000 respondents to capture public perceptions of climate risks and resilience efforts. The main objectives was to assess the strength and coherence of existing policies and identify gaps and develop applicable recommendations to prioritize the communities in climate and disaster governance. Existing policies and legislation providing foundation of driving action, but the gap is in coordination, implementation, and monitoring. It's limit their effectiveness. Policy implementation really focus on proud of environmental and disaster response, with only small number of action in implementation to addressing flash floods and very limited response to addressing heat waves. As such, the analysis has identified 5 key findings and recommendations to enhance climate resilience and disaster preparedness. These findings can inform policy and programmatic decisions by the government of Jordan, United Nations, and different agencies, donors, international government organizations. Now we can, to start with the policy, the recommendations on the first one was on the policy reform. Jordan increasingly vulnerable to flash floods and heat waves, posing significant threats to public health, infrastructure, and livelihood. These risks are expected to escalated in the coming years due to the climate change, as maybe all of you know that. Yet currently policy actual framework do not adequately addressing them. And our recommendation was strengthen sectoral adaptation plan and response practice for flash floods and heat waves within critical sectors like agriculture, water, and health. The second areas we are working on, we find on local governance. Actual locally lead action, which based on communities' knowledge and experiences, and fully consider gender equality, social inclusion is essential for effective CCA and DRR in Jordan. Existing policies and legislations do not fully enable community-driven planning. The recommendation to address this, the first one is implementation strength legal and policy drives to drive development of local led CCA and DRR planning and action. This could include mandating locally led integrated action on CCA and DRR, especially in NSDRR, and updates the climate change bylaw 79/2019 and now National Adaptation Plan. Okay, sorry. Someone maybe open his mic. Okay, learning from NGO also to enhance more approach of lead community. We need to learn from NGO on their experience on CCA and DRR project to inform really role of the local CCA and DRR planning action across Jordan. Third, was in monitoring and evaluation. Strengthening monitoring and evaluation and learning is critical for CCA and DRR in Jordan. Yet current system lack to the technical capacity, data integration, and independent oversight needs to the drive evidence-based action. Our recommendation was improve sharing and access to existing data and make more technical staff to time for climate and disaster risk analysis, explore new opportunities to work with universities and research centers, institutes, and develop a new evidence. Also, we need to develop comprehensive approach to monitoring and evaluation in CCA and DRR based on the example provided by Jordan Economic Modernization Vision. And we show that we see these vision have a really stable and concrete indicators. We can build something like that. Fourth, we regards to coordination bodies, and the coordination really is really main issues here. Effective coordination between CCA and DRR, accelerated progress, prevent duplication of effort, and optimize the use of resources. However, existing governance structure for managing CCA and DRR at the national level are fragments, limit across sectors and collaboration. Our recommendation for that really need to update existing national governance arrangement by the ensuring CCA and DRR representations and links between the Climate Change Committee and the NCSCM board of directors. Also, implement new governance arrangement to support coordination of CCA and DRR, including establishing technical advisor body for CCA and as a mandate by national climate plan. At last but not least, on adaptation finance. As everything in our life need a finance. Finance is the special core. In Jordan, facing significant challenges in securing significant climate adaptation finance to meet its growing resilience needs, while the country has outlined major investment prioritize the total funding required to address climate risk at national and local level remains unclear, and there is not formal mechanism to track financing gaps. Recommendation include update cost in investment needed to deliver climate adaptation in Jordan in the update indices and specify the level of investment scared and the amount of international climate finance required, implement budget tracking to record past, present, and future investment in CCA and DRR project, consider establishing the climate finance country platform to coordinate more coordination here, cross actors collaboration on climate finance. Overall, these areas elaborated on future throughout of the resources generated by Mercy Corps provide strategic focus on roadmap for its change. Now I want to hand over to my colleague to explain more about Mercy Corps Jordan, how the designed program to tackle these issues. Thank you for all and for your listening and for your passion. Thank you.
Thank you, Hella, for the presentation. And now finally handing it over to Noor to go over Mercy Corps Jordan's response and call to action.
Hello, everyone. Thank you all for joining, and welcome to all the latecomers. My name is Noor Darwazeh, and I'm the Policy Research and Evidence Specialist at Mercy Corps Jordan. And thank you to my colleague Hala, who went over the findings of our policy analysis. I think to reiterate and give just a general overview, as we can all see, Jordan is now facing a lot of climate-related hazards as a result of the climate change. And Jordan, being a very vulnerable country, considering the water scarcity within the country, has amplified all of these hazards that we are facing every day. And our capacity at the moment is really influencing our ability to address development goals and really achieve the goals that are being set within the country, specifically with regards to agriculture and general economic stability, among other areas. The importance of really integrating climate change adaptation and DRR are essential to be able to address these vulnerabilities and really increase the country's resilience to address these threats with time. I would like to also reiterate what Hannah and Hala also both said, is that Jordan as a country has really put substantial efforts on a lot of the policy and legislation landscape that are in place. And there have been a really solid foundation for us to really take a look on what's out there to be able to really build and move forward. The main objective behind the policy analysis that we initially conducted is really to build on these, to understand what's out there and identify gaps, strengths, opportunities of where there can be future improvement and or support moving forward. And that's exactly what our project, Strengthening Climate Resilience in Jordanian Communities, aims to achieve. We try to identify this foundation, this evidence to really build our initiatives, design our implementation strategy, and solidify what's already there, basically. Based on that, as I said, our project is funded by the Z Zurich Foundation, as well as the Swiss Agency for Development and Cooperation, the STC. Essentially, the project will bolster efforts under Mercy Corps' ongoing Zurich Climate Resilience Alliance, aligning with Mercy Corps' vision of fostering resilient communities that are capable of thriving amidst climate challenges. Next slides, please. The project will work on two levels. Firstly, we will work on the national level, whereby the project will drive systemic changes by engaging key stakeholders that are responsible for localizing and enforcing climate change adaptation and disaster risk reduction strategies. At the same time, we will be working at the local level with the communities that are now on the screen. We are working with 5 main communities in 3 different governance that were selected based on their high vulnerability to flash floods, as well as heat waves and water scarcity. The project essentially will work on 3 main ideas and main areas of focus. The first works on the adaptive capacity of Jordanian communities. We will also work to promote the effective localization and enforcement of national climate policies. And finally, we aim to create a supportive culture and environment that enables increased investments in climate resilience initiatives. So with that, our main goal is that vulnerable communities in Jordan have increased resilience to climate change from both, as I said previously, flash floods, heat waves, as well as water scarcity. The overarching goal is we do attempt to achieve it throughout our programming. However, we do recognize that climate resilience is a very sustained and long-term engagement and goal that can be achieved with time. For that reason, the project is structured around a 12-year implementation timeline. This timeline is broken down into 3 main phases, each phase being 4 years long, so in different cycles. This cycling and way of implementation will basically allow us to ensure that we are learning from each cycle that follows. We are aligning to the different policies that are being generated and or are out there, and ensuring that we have more community impact over time, basically. The current first cycle, which spans from 2024 until 2027, we launched our Tabi'a project after securing co-financing from the STC through the Embassy of Switzerland in Jordan in order to complement our ongoing alliance efforts. This partnership really enhances our efforts to address these growing climate and water scarcity, water security challenges. So basically, our first phase started in 2024. This was our inception phase. We used this entire year to really build the evidence, establish the foundation, conduct many different research studies to really understand what we currently have and what we will be building on. Based on this intense inception phase, we were able to design our project activities to really respond to the findings and the gaps that we found. And we're planning to fully implement all of the project activities between 2025 until 2027. 2027 will focus more on closing out these projects and looking towards sustainability and prepping for the following cycles should they arise. Going more into the really structure of the program and really addressing how these outcomes are connected to the policy analysis and the gaps that we identified, we have three main outcome areas of which the project will be addressing and targeting. So the first one, the first outcome addresses the adaptation and implementation of climate resilience interventions in targeted communities in Jordan. So the 5 communities that we will be working in. This component will measure their resilience using the CRMC tool. The CRMC tool is a tool that is used by the Alliance, which is the climate resilience measurement for communities. And basically what the tool does is really assess the resilience within the targeted communities and identifies gaps through a very thorough and in-depth methodology. These findings are then shared with the communities. And then we open up the floor to the communities that we worked with to really prioritize which of these resilience initiatives or gaps that they would like to address as being the most pressing ones. These resilient gaps and priorities are then validated through local authorities, and then we really build on these initiatives by conducting further research and studies to inform the design of community-based interventions. These interventions are typically both soft and hard measures in nature and work together in order to enhance climate resilience altogether. The second outcome of the project really works on the localization and enforcement of CCA and DRR policies in Jordan. Essentially, this component works on policy integration and capacity building at a larger level. Through our project, we aim to integrate a very strong advocacy approach that targets both local and national governments. By generating evidence at the local level, as well as policy studies, which we have already started doing, we aspire to really have essentially towards the end of the project, systems level change that ensures community involvement in all decision-making processes. We aim to do this by stakeholder collaboration, media engagement, knowledge sharing sessions, meetings to be able to have cross-learnings, coordination, collaboration together. The idea is to enhance really policy integration for CCA and DRR and really improving essentially as a bystander the community resilience to climate hazards, specifically flash floods and heat waves. Finally, because we think that for a comprehensive project, we have to take a look at all of the different lenses that come together to reach our final goal. We have our outcome 3, which really works on creating an enabling environment that fosters climate risk-informed investment in Jordan. This component really aims to advance national level coordination and investment in climate resilience. We aim to do so by really leveraging existing structures and platforms. So we have started doing so by aligning with the Swiss Embassy's working group on water-related hazards. This group will allow us to really engage with like-minded stakeholders, see what they're doing, avoid duplication of effort, and really work together to be able to address these water-related hazards to ensure that the project is more cohesive and has more national engagement on CCA and DRR. At the same time, we will be working on promoting climate smart investments. We'll be doing so by identifying private sector actors with the potential to support community-driven solutions through targeted outreach and strategic messaging. These efforts will really come together in order for us to conduct a national pitching event that provides a streamlined opportunity to attract investment for really promising locally developed resilient solutions that reinforce public and private partnerships. As I said, all of these components work together and address the different recommendations that came out of our policy analysis through different lenses. However, I would like to say that perhaps our efforts do shape a strong will and a strong dedication from our side to address these gaps, but perhaps there is still room for improvement and further collaboration. So as Mercy Corps, we are deeply committed to our work and to the communities we serve, of course. Our advocacy is grounded in solid evidence and is driven by a shared vision for a more climate resilient Jordan. The activities that I just listed above and that we have discussed throughout this webinar have really outlined how we aim to respond to the key findings of our policy analysis, and how we hopefully aim to address all of the challenges that have arisen. I would say that this is more than a call to action. We are really extending an invitation to all the stakeholders who can align their efforts with this evidence and really contribute to impactful and coordinated change. This is why we were very eager to conduct this webinar and share our findings and basically our approach with all of the actors and all of the interested stakeholders to be able to warmly welcome any partnerships that we can leverage to help amplify our messages and extend our reach to vulnerable communities across the entire kingdom. Thank you so much. Over back to Yasmin.
Thank you, Noor, for your presentation. And now I would like to open up the floor for questions and answers. During registration, several participants submitted questions they hoped would be addressed during the session, and we'll begin by responding to those. While we open the floor for all of you to start sharing your questions and input, if you have any questions, please type it in the Q&A box. You can find it also on the top of the screen. We will start answering as they appear. You can ask questions in both English and Arabic. Also, you can upvote questions as they come in. So we will start now with the questions. Okay, the first question was, are there any opportunities for collaborating with other countries in the region facing similar challenges in order to maximize impact? Anna, can you please respond?
Yes, of course, Yasmin. Thank you so much for that question. And I think it's the perfect question to ask after Noor finished her presentation. And I can suggest to you ideas for how I think regional collaboration could work, but also for everyone on the call, if you would like to collaborate, if you are here because you're interested in working and learning across the region, you should put your ideas in the chat as well. So from the London School of Economics perspective, we're really keen to share the learning from what we learn from and with our colleagues in Jordan across the Zurich Alliance. We know we've got several other countries who are part of the Alliance who've joined us on the webinar today because they've heard about what's happening in Jordan and they want to learn about what's happening here and how they could use that and contribute to Jordan's learning themselves. My colleague Sarah Meher is on the call today. Sarah is a climate adaptation research fellow at Grantham Research Institute and has two really exciting projects in the Middle East. One focused on a multi-hazard approach to integrating extreme heat and floods in Kuwait. I know several of our partners from Kuwait are on the call, keen to hear about what's happening in Jordan. Sarah also has another great project focused in Iraq called Elevate, where she's working with colleagues and early career researchers to develop projects that will strengthen women's climate resilience. And I know, again, several of our colleagues from Iraq are here today to learn. So informally, that exchange has already started. I think there's great potential to really increase that in the years ahead. So I'll stop there. I could go on, but I won't because I know we've got lots of other questions as well.
Yes, thank you, Anna. Actually, also the next question is also for you to answer. What role does debt sustainability and affordability play in the resilience pathway? Are there any barriers? And if so, potential workaround?
Yeah, great. Really important question, picking up on the priority that has been identified around the need to increase climate finance and adaptation finance. And we know that debt sustainability affects a country's ability to invest in climate resilience, and that countries with high levels of debt means that they have limited capacity to fund disaster risk reduction and climate adaptation action. So there are huge barriers around having limited fiscal space and high borrowing costs when it comes to taking on additional debt to enable action on climate adaptation and resilience. That's a key challenge that needs to be addressed through new and innovative finance mechanisms. And our work through the Zurich Climate Resilience Alliance at the global level, which is led by Mercy Corps, is really focused on working with international partners through COP, through other processes to really try to secure increased adaptation finance and better quality adaptation finance globally. We need to see that benefiting countries that need it most. So that's a very quick answer. Again, if other people have got thoughts and experience on that question, please put your answers in the chat as well. Everyone's views are welcome.
Great, thank you, Anna.
Absolutely.
We have one question that asks, does the RR for climate resilience also focus on health systems? I would like to say that under the Tabi'a project, we have put a lot of awareness and stress on heat risks as a key focus. So especially under vulnerable communities, because as a lot of the analysis and the research that we've conducted about the alignment between heat waves and its impact on the health of the different communities. So we do place a lot of stress on that, and we hope to partner throughout our project with the Ministry of Health to really enhance awareness and preparedness for heat risks, focusing on public education, early warning dissemination, and community-level response measures. So that's a very interesting question. And we do look throughout our analysis and within our project about how this coordinates with all of the different relevant sectors, such as agriculture and water as well. We have another question that asks, Jordan is affected by climate change. Will there be support for projects that reduce emissions in Jordan? I think it's safe to say that looking at climate change, we have both the mitigative and adaptive sides of it. Our focus as part of the Alliance is more on adaptation as opposed to mitigation, because climate impacts are already currently underway and happening, and we're already seeing the challenges and issues that are associated with it. For that reason, our focus is currently on adaptation to build local and systemic resilience, reducing human and economic losses, hopefully, and ensuring the development of gains that are protected in changing the climate. We have another question that says, are climate policies truly connected to climate change projections? Throughout our analysis, we have found that the Fourth National Communication on Climate Change provides essentially projections and highlights the key climate vulnerabilities in Jordan. So focusing on all of the different vulnerabilities, but since our focus currently is flash floods and heat waves, we dug deeper into those, and we have found that as our analysis suggests, that there are still significant challenges remaining with regards to translating these projections and really addressing these vulnerabilities into more localized, actionable policies that effectively address these needs on the ground. Hence, there is a need for more enhanced climate data and systems and better interagency coordination to be able to really address these vulnerabilities and hopefully enhance resilience across the vulnerable communities. We have another question that asks, this is a very interesting practical question that's three-phased. So the first one asks, how can NGOs play an active role in responding to CCA and DRR? The follow-up question to this asks how it can be more applicable to grassroots level NGOs, and then what major challenges can arise as a result of that, and how we can address them. So I think to answer this question, it's a pretty big one. We have basically, it's essentially why, or the objective behind the analysis that we conducted was done for. So it's basically really to understand how NGOs can play this role. So we have outlined various different recommendations that Hala has gracefully went throughout her presentation of basically actions that NGOs can address in order to adopt and integrate into their programming. They are pretty wide recommendations, I would say, and implementation on the ground can really can be translated depending on, of course, the goal of the NGO and or their design moving forward. However, I think one of the core areas that should be looked into is, and what we're adopting under our programming, is that there's strong coordination and strategic partnerships to really see what others are doing to address these gaps and how they can really work together in order to achieve the overarching goals without duplicating efforts, which is, I think, something that's very important to take note of. To be able to essentially really drive meaningful change. On the grassroots level, I think maybe such initiatives are the most important ones, because really working with the community directly and at the more grassroots level really allows NGOs to work on local initiatives and promote the bottom-up approach to inclusive, risk-informed policy making. We do know that perhaps resources are limited at the local level, and that could be one of the main challenges. Perhaps it's essential that the perspectives of the frontline actors are captured to ensure more responsive and effective decision-making, which could be done perhaps by enhancing their capacity and really working on their contribution towards meaningful and informed inputs. So I think this is one of the crucial entry points that grassroots can really work with, this local community. We have a very interesting question, and I'm happy that this was also brought up within this webinar. So basically the question was, how did we validate our policy analysis findings from the government, and how were they engaged in the recommendations process? Yes, so I would say this was one of the biggest scopes of our work. So essentially what was done is we conducted a very long policy analysis, after which it was summarized into various different documents, and we will go through the resources that were generated as a result of this activity. But I would say that throughout every step of the process, we were engaging the local government and the national government, of course, within these processes to ensure, first of all, that we're accurate in the findings that we're putting out, they are validated, and that any input that perhaps is not published or was not captured by the study is inputted throughout every step. So we first conducted the analysis, and then we conducted a shortened version of the analysis, which was shared with all of the relevant ministries and stakeholders that were essential to the development of this policy analysis. So we took their feedback, added any additional information throughout the process, and then created a validation session whereby we provided them with all the documentation just to make sure that they are happy with and that they felt that the findings were reflective of what is actually available on the ground. We also allowed them to input into the recommendation as to where they, from their technical and professional experience, believe targeted approaches are necessary. We conducted that through different peer reviews and sharing the preliminary findings during the official launch of our Tabi'a project, which was held in February 2025. I would also like to reiterate that the initial study started taking place in March 2024. And now is when we finally have all the products ready for sharing. But throughout the process, things have changed within the policy landscape, updates were found, and we kept making these changes as they went on, just to make sure that our research paper was continuously updated with anything new, basically. Okay, next question. How did you contribute to link the policy analysis back to the FRMC results and community intervention profiling? First of all, maybe to give a bit of context to all our listeners, the FRMC, the flood resilience measurement for communities, is the first iteration of the CRMC. So essentially, the project previously initiated in 2023 and focused on flood resilience only. As of this new cycle, 2024, the scope has enlarged to accommodate all of the different climate risks that are happening in Jordan and around the world. So from our perspective, we're focusing on flash floods and heat waves as they are the most pressing in Jordan. So basically, based on the FRMC assessment that we conducted, we identified the different gaps that were found in the different communities, and then we generated a lot of lessons learned, of which we translated into the CRMC on the process itself, and then translating it into real life interventions. The CRMC now is focusing, as I said, on floods and heat waves, and we're trying to link the findings from the CRMC that are generated at the local level with the policy level as well. The findings are directly tied to community priorities by using local risk data from surveys and interviews to inform these recommendations. Essentially, the CRMC is focused on improving early warning systems, local planning, and engaging stakeholders to address real community needs and enhance climate resilience. This ensures that the policy analysis aligns with the actual needs of the vulnerable communities and supports at a higher level the effective localized climate resilience strategies. I think we still have a few questions. What practical steps do you see to bridge between national CCA and DRR strategies and community implementation projects? How could we ensure that ongoing community resilience interventions are acknowledged and absorbed into formal plans, investments, as policies are cascaded into local level? I think maybe that's a good and very wide question, but basically bridging a national local action by mandating local roles could be done by using community data and planning and establishing coordination platforms. This substantially will ensure that local interventions are acknowledged. It's very important, of course, to keep documenting successes and learnings and then sharing them as well, and then ensuring that they're integrated into policy reviews and aligning funding to scale really proven solutions to be able to achieve impact at large. Will you, next question says, will you share the presentation as a JNFW National Grassroots NGO and as a member of JUNAP Action Plan 2? We stand ready to take part in upcoming initiatives. Thank you so much for saying that. We really look forward to that, and we're very excited to hear that, of course. Yes, we will be sharing the slides as well as the recording from today's session. We also would like, hopefully, we recommend for everyone to download the resources, such as the policy analysis evidence paper and the brief, to really take a deep dive into all of the findings that we've found. Hopefully it can help in your upcoming initiatives. And we're always happy to really connect and hear from others what they're doing and how we can support all together. Okay, what are your data sources for flash floods and heat waves susceptibility? If I understood this question correctly, we're asking about basically the methodology of the analysis. So basically, we use a combination of national data sets and local risk assessments. We used reports from the Ministry of Water and Irrigation, the Jordan Meteorological Department, and municipality level data. This was complemented by community mappings and field consultations during the CRMC process. We also conducted a national level survey that got responses from over 1,000 responses, highlighting public concern about flash floods and heat waves. So that's really on the community level. We also conducted qualitative data collection through KIIs and focus group discussions, to provide perceptions from government representatives as well as community leaders on their perceptions of the vulnerabilities that are faced by the communities. We leveraged government and academic reports, such as data from the different relevant policies, legislations, as well as the adaptation plans, and so on and so forth, and the different strategies, of course, to really understand the context of the vulnerability and where the gaps perhaps between actual policy and implementation on the ground really are. We also leveraged past disaster data. So we looked at historical data from flash floods and heat waves, and to really understand their impacts on communities, infrastructure, and agriculture. We have a question on how can Jordan enhance coordination between national and local governments to ensure effective implementation of CCA and DRR policies? I think that's a really good and big question, which is one of essentially the objectives of the analysis that we conducted, because we know that perhaps these two strategies do work in silos, and really having them merge together would be in one way or form the best goal that we can achieve. So basically, we believe that localization is key. In order to really have policies at the national level that are reflective of local needs, there has to be a bridge between these two areas. Unfortunately, this bridge is not always is the most difficult one to achieve, because perhaps these national level entities and local level entities do not have a segue or pathway to really interact and communicate together. But we do think that through our efforts and or collaborative activities in which the communities are engaged in understanding, first of all, how they are affected by climate change challenges, to really understand their roles, comes as a key factor in order to be able to drive climate action on the national level, and ensuring that this coordination is really bridged. Okay, we have a question asking about the project focus. So it says, I understand the project focuses on flash floods and droughts. I'm curious about how it plans to connect with the average person, someone who doesn't see the link between using plastic bags and the climate disasters Jordan is experiencing. I feel frustrated that many people in Jordan don't realize how their everyday interactions with the environment are contributing to these issues. I wonder, is there a policy in place or being developed to ban the use of plastic bags and other single-use plastics? I think I understand the frustration, and a very interesting question. I do think that not a lot of people are aware of these day-to-day activities that do impact climate change. People don't understand perhaps the direct link between these small activities and their impact on a larger scale. However, perhaps the main goal of our project is a bit broader than these specific details. But the project does focus as one of the main activities and main components on raising awareness about the connection between environmental behavior and climate impacts. Perhaps it doesn't go into details of plastics, but we do aim to really enhance the knowledge of the communities of their behaviors. We will be working on educating them on how waste, pollution, and unsustainable practices contribute to these issues, such as blocking drainage systems and exacerbating water scarcity. On your question with regards to, I believe, policy, for plastic bags and single-use plastics, Jordan has taken some steps to address these issues. However, there are ongoing discussions about the policies to reduce plastic use. The government has been working on strategies to improve waste management and encourage recycling. While there isn't a nationwide ban on single-use plastics yet, various policies and regulations are being developed to reduce their environmental impact. The push to integrate sustainability into national plans, including banning or limiting single-use plastics, is becoming more prominent. However, I would like to highlight that despite all of this, this is an interesting conversation to continue at some point and is very relevant to climate change, but our efforts within the Tabira project mainly focus on first of all, climate change adaptation rather than mitigation, as communities are feeling and experiencing the impacts of climate change now. And also our scope, this extends perhaps beyond our scope, but we're eager to perhaps conduct any collaboration or coordination with any other NGOs or stakeholders that may be interested in pursuing this path, and maybe discuss how that can, what it could look like moving forward. I see Anna has her hand up, so please go ahead.
Thanks, Noor. I just maybe just to add something into that last question about how do we make things like flash floods and heat wave feel relevant to people who have got lots of different things going on in their lives. And I think my understanding, at least, the way in which Mercy Corps and other colleagues across the Zurich Alliance is conducting their climate resilience, the CRMC surveys with householders. It means that you spend that time in communities with individual householders to hear about how, like, the different things that make a community resilient, and how climate hazards like flood and heat fit alongside the wider things that affect community resilience. So I feel like there's a real strength to that kind of way in which that allows you to consider climate risks and climate hazards as part of like the wider issues that matter to communities. So I think that's a really positive aspect of the approach that's been taken. And then secondly, I think it's interesting, I found it very interesting from the survey that Hala conducted as part of the policy analysis, where we had responses from over 1,000 people around, how they understood or perceived climate risk, and how concerned people were or weren't about things like heat risk and flood risk. And that showed that, over 70% of the people who were surveyed were really concerned about extreme heat in Jordan. And that just kind of gives you some insights around, yes, there are lots of challenges, but it's definitely one that's really high up there on people's list of things to be concerned about. So yeah, I just wanted to add those thoughts. I don't know if you would agree with those, Noor. Feel free to disagree if you think I've read that wrongly, but that's
yes, no,
definitely.
Thank you. Thank you for your input. It's nice to have a change of voice a little bit. But yeah, definitely. Thank you for your input, Anna. We do have still a few more questions. We have one question that asks, how can local communities be more actively involved in the development and implementation of climate resilience policies to ensure that interventions are contextually relevant and effective? I think this goes into a lot of the areas that we have been speaking on, and the importance of localizing different policies and adaptive actions. Different ways can work on this. We can engage in early policy design through consultations and participatory risk assessments to really understand, first of all, what risks communities are facing on the ground, and then lift them up into policy design. Supporting local advocacy structures like community committees to voice priorities. This is very important, and approach that we are actually using within our programming is to really facilitate committees where different peoples from different sectors are coming together and discussing issues at the local level, and then conducting advocacy messaging to be able to influence at the systems level areas that are important to them substantially. Co-creating solutions with communities to ensure interventions match local needs. So we're also working on that via our CRMC approach to make sure that, based on the resilience gaps, we're designing throughout community-led sessions interventions that address the shortcomings. Providing resources and tools for communities to implement and really monitor resilience actions. So really giving them the agency by first capacitating them and then giving them the agency to really monitor moving forward, and also being part of the improvement and adaptive process. This is why our project really focuses at the core of it a participatory approach to make sure that these local needs are being reflected into larger and more important national level goals. We have a very important question, and I'm glad that this was brought up about the Arabic versions of the resources that we've done. We have developed all of the resources, of course, in English and Arabic. The Arabic resources are available online for download, and we can leave a link in the chat right now. It's on the same. If you received an email from us with the link for the resources, it's on the same link. At the top, you have the English resources. At the bottom, you have them in Arabic. I also want to highlight that during our launching ceremony for the Tobi'a project, we did have all of the relevant and a lot of Arabic-speaking stakeholders, of which we presented these key findings in Arabic and then captured their feedback, and then these were reflected into the final resources. So I do want to highlight this approach. However, this webinar we opted to create in English just so that we can reach a wider audience, perhaps within the region as well as globally, to really showcase what we're doing within Jordan. We did try to bridge the gap a little bit by allowing for Arabic subtitles. Hopefully that was useful for a lot of you, but we definitely would like to reach more Arabic-speaking individuals and perhaps down the line coordinate or organize any future events. So stay tuned for that. Yes. We have a question that asks, I'm interested in understanding the government and other stakeholders' response to establishing a climate finance country platform for coordination. It has multiple positive implications, yet also introduces complexity to the process. That's one of the very big recommendations that came out of our policy analysis. So we found that we do have a lot of financing, and there is a lot of efforts that are going into financing different climate initiatives, although there is a huge gap with regards to financing, and Jordan is in dire need to be able to address climate challenges through this financing. We felt that the analysis showed us that there is a huge gap between what we know is being financed, how it's being financed, and really the progress. Like, okay, so this is the money that's available, this is left, and really tracking where these projects are, what their impact is. So I would say that this recommendation that we proposed as the country platform, whereby we can have all of this continuously updated, is a best practice. However, we really need to consider how feasible it is, and why, and perhaps not specifically targeted by our project, but as a suggestion and opening for the government to really adopt and or explore through other stakeholders and or partnerships. For countries that do have such platforms, it has been shown to yield very positive results by enhancing transparency and really aligning donor efforts, so that people can see what's going on, what's missing, and where they can better contribute to that. It also helps streamline access to climate funds and ensures that national priorities guide these investments. I think we don't have any more comments or questions for now. We do have 15 minutes left for our webinar, so if anyone has any additional questions, clarifications, suggestions, the floor is still open for your input. Okay. I think we can wrap up now. Thank you all for your contribution and for your time for joining our webinar. I'll hand it over to Yasmin to close out. Thank you.
So this is our time for today. Thank you everyone for joining us. We will be sharing the recording after the session. Following months of work, we are proudly sharing 3 knowledge products now available in both English and Arabic. You can find them in the link below. Also, you can find them. So these are the products. A policy brief that offers practical evidence-based recommendations to strengthen climate adaptation and disaster risk reduction in Jordan, and an evidence paper that presents the full scope of research and analysis to substantiate all of the findings highlighted in the brief, and finally an annex that covers all of Jordan's CCA and DRR legislations and policy. We encourage you also to visit our website and download the documents. You can find the website in this QR code or in the link that I have sent in the comment section. You can access these documents and download them. Please follow us on our social media. Here you can find the social media Zurich Climate Resilience Alliance, the London School of Economics, and Mercy Corps Jordan. This is just the beginning. We welcome your feedback, collaboration ideas, and any questions you may have. Let's keep the conversation going. Thank you so much.